Okay, what I'd like to do now is change gears and move over to the New Testament, since we may or may not have sufficient background now, but I think we do. I want to spend the rest of the time reading the book of Acts and Paul's letters. And I think with this background, together with those documents, we should be able to get some feel or hold of where we stand in this Christian origins, Paul versus James situation. Before I do any, as far as the exam goes, any questions, hit me after the class. And in any case, I can't answer your questions about your test without you giving it to me so I can look at it. So there's no way that I can really even answer anything. I can't really read it in front of me or anything like that. Yeah.
Do you still want us to pass around an attendance sheet?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I have a sheet someplace, but it seems to have evaporated. So yeah, pass around an attendance sheet. All right. So I think the best thing to do is just go over to the book of Acts. This book is a very odd book. That's all I can tell you. Now, if you're a believer, all this is inspired or given or, you know, having something to do by or with God. And so you're going to be pretty pretty under its authority to assent to more or less what its presentation is. I've tried to point out from the beginning that human beings are at work in these matters, and the author of this document makes that quite clear from the beginning. He even says he's compared various works. So, you know, this is not from the mouth of God, despite people who have an idea that there is such a thing as the Word of God. I wish there were the Word of God. It'd help us all out a lot, actually, if he would just show himself and give us the scoop. But I don't think he functions in that way, if he can be called a he or a she. I mean, it isn't even fair to put a gender on this being or force or whatever is running through the universe. So, but I don't think he bothers talking to ants and fleas. He's got enough trouble with meteors, glowing, dinosaur disappearances. I'm somehow not convinced that he really cares what cockroaches and snakes are doing. You know, that's just unfortunately, we care. That's what I think we're talking about. Humans care. And I honestly feel that humans have a problem that most living, if whatever, is a rock living creature? No, I guess. But is the universe living? It seems to behave like a living being of some kind. Is a leaf living? Well, a leaf lives for a while, then it falls off of the tree. Then we just rake it up and throw it in the garbage or burn it. Are we living because we can have locomotion, that we can move independently of roots and trunks and things like that? Yeah, I suppose we can be considered to be living. So of living beings that actually have motion, that have their own power system in them, like an automobile has a power system. Trees don't have their own power system except that they're tied to the ground, I think. They have a power system. We have a power system like a battery that lets us run around, which is why when our heart runs down, they stick a battery in our chest anyway. So you know, we have a power system, which tends to get faulty over time, like any automobile. But the problem we have is consciousness. I don't know how many other beings are conscious of themselves. They're conscious of the world, and they can react to different things. Like my cat knows exactly what he has to do. He knows how to get in the door, he knows how to get out the door, he knows how to find food, he knows how to avoid danger. He knows all these things. But is he conscious of himself? Does he have abstract thought? I don't know. I mean, I'm not in his brain, so I can't say. But probably he doesn't have as much as humans have, if he has any at all. So our problem is that we're conscious, and being conscious, that makes things painful because we know that we begin and we end. So therefore, we have some real problems because we can't understand why we're here, why we began, and why we're not going to continue forever. And that really is a huge issue. And before modern or relatively modern science, starting with the Greeks, I would guess, I mean, people were knocked around by forces they didn't understand. Meteor hits, plague, disease mostly was their big problem, old age, disease, and they didn't know how to deal with any of this stuff because they didn't know what caused it. Like we had an eclipse yesterday. I mean, they'd see that and they wouldn't know what that was all about. So they were living basically in a semi-dark universe because they didn't have the scientific knowledge to know what their environment really was about, what caused the seasons, why there were stars in the sky, and all things of that kind. Well, so they invented all this explanations that we find charming now. Gods, goddesses, powers behind this, mountains, streams, lakes, and so on. You know, thunder gods, rain gods, death gods, all kinds of things, curing gods. So they had all this sort of stuff that they felt explained all this to them. And it's charming to us now, but really it's a little out of date because the forces that produced it really are, you know, even astrology, thinking that, oh, well, they're so nervous that what's going to happen tomorrow, we need some guidance, so we look at stars and things, or bird flights, or liver entrails, or whatever. I mean, all that sort of thing is charming and may make you feel better, but it isn't going to do a lot of explaining for you. So we're in a very strange book here. This is part primitive and part modern, I think you might say. And I don't think it represents anything particularly sacred in terms of the Word of God. But you can differ with me on that. That's your business. It's your religious thing, and if you want to be reinforced in religion, you've got to go to a church, synagogue, or mosque. If you come to a university, you're in trouble. Because the university is Descartes' world. The university is, you know, subjecting everything to systematic doubt, which is what Descartes did to produce, and he produced a great instrument. He helped produce the calculus. So, and the calculus is a very impressive tool. It can do tremendous calculations. So you don't want to poo-poo what people like him came up with. So Newton, Descartes, all these, Galileo, all these thinkers in the 16th, 17th century. That's when things really, I think, started to take off again. When we got rid of inquisitions and religious control over people's minds, enforcing conformity, which is still going on in the Islamic world, as you see, on pain of having your throat cut. So as long as people can cut other people's throats for not assenting, or take Galileo and put him in house arrest for the rest of his life for saying what's obvious, that the earth goes around the sun and the sun doesn't go around the earth, and so on. You can't get progress in terms of intellectual things. So since those people did all of that, people like myself come along and voice these reservations openly, but 300 or 400 years ago you couldn't do that. Maybe even 200 years ago. Anyway, so I have, I'm not the only one. Most scholars I know are very, you see, how did I get to accent? You're surprised that I got there, but I did. Sometimes I get out on a limb and I start sawing it off, and I saw myself off and I fall onto the earth. But other times I get out on the limb and I crawl back before the limb breaks. So, having said that, I'm